This is going to be the first of two videos on making difficult selections, and the worst thing to select, bar none, is hair and fur. So the first thing we're going to do is make a selection of Truman, my cat here, multicolored cat on a multicolored background, both similar in tone. We have brown furniture over here, brown furniture that he's on. He's a brown cat with seal points here. So it's going to be a challenge to get him to look like a natural selection in a new environment. So one of the things that you can do is check your channels, your color channels up here, to see if there's a good contrast between the subject and the background. In here we can see that there's a bar that's coming down here. We can see the fur is close to the color of the furniture here, here. In all the channels we have areas that are problems. So the channels are not going to help us at this point really very well. So I'm going to come in to the quick selection tool, not quick mask, W for quick selection tool, and I'm going to go over the cat with a fairly large brush first and get as much as I can. Then I'm going to make the brush a little bit smaller and come in with the Option or Alt key down to select the parts, deselect the parts I should say, that are not part of the cat. And I can come back in with the smaller brush. It's going to be a little more sensitive and pick up the rest of the cat. Now I could have done that right in the Select and Mask option dialog box, but I just chose to do it outside first. The first thing you want to do is check your smart radius. Make sure your smart radius is on, and you want to come in. I'm going to put this down at 0, and you can see when I do that it comes to a very abrupt edge here. When I make the smart radius setting larger, you can see how it starts to feather out, and we want it just large enough so that it is giving a nice feathered edge to the fur, which is going to give us a more natural look to it, and that looks pretty good from what I can tell. We can look at this, preview this in a number of different ways. It might be well to look at it as a quick mask or on a black background. That's pretty good that way. So I can see the selection here in terms of black and white, or a red mask and white, or clear. Okay, that looks good, so I've got a good view there. That's up at the top that you've got all those options for your view. Alright, everything that's alive should have a little bit of a feather on it, so I'm going to do that. I'm not going to shift the edge in or out to make the selection smaller or larger by any percentage, because I want it to be right at the cat's edge, and I think that's just fine. I'm going to click on the output settings, and I want this to be a new layer with a layer mask, but I'm not going to output it quite yet. I'm going to come over here to the edge detection brush, and I'm going to go along the edge and see if I can get it to make a little bit better selection that wasn't of the edge. Okay, let's switch. Actually, let's go up here and see how it does with the little fur at the top of his ear. And that just may be too big. Okay, it is. It's too big. So in this case, it's not really going to help us. In most cases with hair, especially long human hair, it will help you a great deal. What you want to do is come in from the outside and drag into the subject, whatever your subject is going to be, and that worked pretty nicely in that case. And keep the crosshairs in the center of this, outside of the edge of your image, your selection. And it's getting too muddy now. I can see that it is. Undo, Commander Control Z, and I'm going to leave it there. You can see we kind of tried a few different tricks, but it's going to be a little bit easier to deal with it as a layer mask, I think. Okay, you can see Truman here has a very kind of hard edge there. So we're going to go to the layer mask and use a soft edge brush. And I'm going to go back to up here, soft edge, And we're in a layer mask. The white will be the selected part. So I'm going to come in here and soften that edge up a bit on the inside and maybe switch to a white brush to soften it on the outside. And we want him to look very, very, very integrated with his environment. You can see down here it did a little better job. Down on the under part of the arm, it did not. His front legs, sorry. Switch to the black, white, we're on a mask. And I can come in here and soften that line where you see the edge between where it's fully selected and kind of tapers into shadow there. That's one of the reasons it's having a problem is not only have we got a multicolored cat, we've got it on a shadow as well. Okay, that looks reasonably okay. Just soften the edge of that. And I'm not leaving it softened here, just so you know that that is not going to be our end product. All right, up here I'm going to switch to a black brush. Oops, sorry. Go back to make sure I'm on the mask and brush. And there we go. Up there, okay. Another black brush to get any overspray up here, down here. Good rule of thumb for how big you want your brushes when you're using a very soft edge brush is twice as big as you think your border is going to be from the where it stops being solid to where it stops being any part of the selection to where it starts being solid. So right here you can see that fur is just a tad over half the size of that brush, so maybe that big. Okay, so if I'm using my brush here, come in and stay away from it a little bit, but that's about how the softness you want. Okay? Alright, so I'm going to apply that mask by dragging it into the trash and applying it. So now we have the cat on his layer. Okay, so now we have some cleaning up to do. We want that to look like fur and not like fuzz. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to make a new layer. I'm going to use the mixer brush, but I'm going to have it select all layers. So in here I'm going to have it sample all layers, but I'm on a blank layer above the cat. And I'm doing that just so I can see what's going on. And I can come in here and pull out some fur from the top there, a little bit on the tufts of his ears. And I've got the setting very low, 10%. Oh, sorry, no, I have it very high. I wanted it pretty low. And just kind of very gently pull. I'm doing this with a tablet. This is going to be really hard to do if you don't have a tablet, but you can kind of mouse it out a little bit. Especially this is short fur, so you can see it's not as difficult as it would be with long hair. And I'm going to be giving you a fair number of tutorials that show you using the show it using the tablet. And one of the things I do want to show you here is we want to clean this brush, and we don't want to pick up new paint. We want to keep the brush clean, so we're just dragging from the color that I'm using rather than adding color in. So I'm just pulling on the colors that are already there and dragging them out, but I'm on a separate layer. And I have checked sample all layers up here to keep it that way. You notice I'm just going in the direction that the fur would grow. So in this case I'm going off at about a 45-degree angle from lower to upper right, lower left to upper right down here as well. And in here, whatever way the fur is going, that's the way I want my brush to go. So down here I'm switching around, I'm going around the paw. And you can see how I'm following along here. And just pulling that color out by using that mixer brush. And we're going to keep going along the edge. And don't worry if it gets too long, because we can come back in with that eraser tool, soft edge eraser tool, and we will trim that hair down just a little bit. Okay, so we have a little bit more up here on the top of the head. Now, anywhere that we have a little bit of overspray, we want to come in with that soft edge eraser and just pull it back a little bit. I'm going to do that again, just a little less vigorously. A little less there, and down here. And you can see it gives us a really, just look at it, and wherever it looks like it's just a little too obviously paintbrush stroked, just touch it with that eraser. You can lower the opacity if you want. I'm right at 100%, so I'm maximum opacity for this brush, maximum effect for the eraser. And back here a little bit, and I could drop it, but I'm just want to do this quickly because videos take your time and a lot of memory. And there we go. Alright, he has got a nick in his ear, so I'm going to leave that. I'm going to make this brush a lot bigger up here to taper off those little tufts of hair at the top of his ears, and then come in and make it progressively smaller to get it. There we go. Okay, so there is our cat selected off the background. I'm going to put the fur behind him this time. It's still just coming out of the edges, but not quite as visibly on top of the cat. You can check it for yourself and decide. Merge those two layers together. Hold down the Command or Control key and click on the new layer icon to make a layer below him. And just use the gradient tool to kind of check it out. There we go. Okay, so we kind of get a sense maybe of some depth going on. It looks pretty good to me. You might want to come in here again once you're looking at it on a background with the eraser tool and soften that edge up. It's a little easier when you see it on the background, and your background is going to make a difference as to how much touching up is necessary. But come in here and just clean it up anywhere that you see it needs cleaning, and that's all there is to it. That is putting a cat on a new background. Now this edge here where it's really kind of lighter than I would want it to be, I'm going to come in here with the burn tool and just put a little bit of darkening along that edge. I've got it at 90, but I'm just ticking it with the burn tool there. Okay, and then we can check this on the, I'm going to invert that background and check it on a white background just to make sure it looks pretty cool, and it looks great on both. Looks really good. Okay, that is how you make a selection of this particular subject, which is one of the more difficult ones, and we'll continue with another subject in another video.